Okay, Yachimo, greetings. Say everyone for joining in. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Radahempata Akan. Let me know in the chat room if there's any issue with the sound, if you can't hear, if there's an issue with the imagery, just let me know. And I just want to pull up one thing and we'll get started. Okay. Okay, so I'm doing this live stream because, there's a great deal of misinformation regarding our identity. Of course, people have just been brainwashed with regard to trustery in general, but people are pushing agendas that were founded by the white Narrow Spring, always trying to get us away from our Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, meaning African identity, our Black identity. So going back over 100 years, when the white Narrow Spring started using agents within our community to push idiotic ideas and false identities like Moorishism, Hebrewism, Islamic identities. Some fools talking about their extraterrestrials, some of our people pretending like they're Native Americans and so forth, or a number of different false identities, always promoted by the whites in Narrow Spring, forced on us by their agents within our communities. And then our people just don't understand that. Our people have been brainwashed with false information for decades. So then some of our people go along with that. But we want to get back to truth, accuracy. We've published a number of books. So first of all, once again, I'm Odwirafo, Kwesi Radahempata Akan, Odwirafo of Akwamu Amaruka Tifimu, the Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. I've published 31 books to date. We have more books coming forward. Over the first book I published was in December of Gregorian calendar date 97. So this December, as a matter of fact, is the 28th anniversary of that first book, Ubin Shang. And since then, 31 books with true history, true historical information, cosmology, holistic health, culture, nation building, restoration for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African Black people. This presentation, we're going to deal with the etymological origin and cosmological origin of the term Africa, which is Afu Ra Ka, Afuraka, and Afuraitkait, the male and female terms that are the origin of the term Africa. You'll get a lot of misinformation from even individuals who claim to be scholars, some of them well-meaning and some of them were just pushing misinformation. But even them, you'll notice who's doing the actual research and who's not. It doesn't matter if someone has a credential, if they have letters behind their name and so forth, if they're a PhD, a professor, traditional priest or priestess. None of that matters if you're not doing the actual research. And we've done the actual research and we put that forward. So this image here is from, these images are from the tomb of Seti in ancient Kemet. And you'll see that it says Afu Ra, and you'll see different versions of that. I'm going to show you the book where we got that from. Now, this is my book, ODWIRASEM, Trustorical Anthology. It's a 600-page book. 12 of the 31 books that I've published, we incorporated all 12 in a big anthology. It's 600 pages. It's 8.5 by 11. So it's an encyclopedia size text. And what you'll find is, and it's also in color, the first book out of my 12 books, the very first book that we put forward. You'll see some of the imagery here. Let's see, you can see that. So the very first book within this text is the book Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkait, the origin of the term Africa. So we have a number of books in this text. I'll show you where you can purchase it directly from our website at the end. But we're going to pull up the portion of the book right now that deals directly with this information. And hold on one second. And what we have done is when we look at these primary sources, and it's very important to deal with primary sources and not, just going along with what other people have said. We deal with primary sources and then we actually source them and we actually, hold on 1 second, it's taking a minute to come up. Okay. So I'm showing you the ebook version right here, but as I said, I've published 31 books and 12 of them are part of this anthology. The very first one in the anthology is the book, one of the most popular of the books I've published, is Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkaitnit, The Origin of the Term Africa. And we show right on the front page, the cover. This right here is from the papyrus of Hunefer, showing Afu Ra Ka. And this image in the middle is from the temple of Paraka, so-called Philae. And it's Afuraka, one of the variations of Afuraka and so forth, and we'll get into that. But right from the gate, we show the direct primary sources. And we will also show, when people say that Africa was named after the Roman general Scipio Africanus, totally false. Arabic origins, Greek origins, Latin origins, Sanskrit origins, all these pseudo-etymologies, we expose the fraud of each one of those, the Greek origin, Latin origin, Phoenician origin, Arabic origin, Sanskrit origin, Scipio Africanus, Leo Africanus, all of that, we expose that in the book and show how each one of them are fraudulent, false pseudo-etymologies for the term. Now, when you look into Medutu, and we teach a course, a 2-part course on the Medutan Toro, how to read and write the language, the hieroglyphs of ancient Khanid and Kemet, you'll see here that it's spelled out Afurakai in the Hunefer papyrus and Afurakani in the temple of Paraka, so-called Philae. So let's get into where we got that from. Let's start off with the term for land itself. So we talk about the Earth's surface, the land. There's a term Ka in ancient Kemet, and Ka means soul or divine consciousness. So you see the symbol like this, that's the symbol for Ka. The feminine version is Ka'et. It means soul or divine consciousness, the deity that governs your head, the soul, the spiritual force, that's the spirit's brain. In ancient Khanid and Kemet, that's called the Ka, the soul of the divine consciousness. On the other hand, the Ba is the spirit. So you have a spirit, which is a Ba, your divine living energy, the solar fire that's moving through you, that's animating you. That's the Ba for males, Ba'et for females. We're talking about Black people only. The soul or divine consciousness, the divinity that governs your head, your divine consciousness, that is a divinity, a male divinity for your male, a female divinity for your female, and that is called Ka for males and Ka'et for females. So Ka means soul, divine consciousness. We show the symbol, but it's very interesting because the word for land, specifically a high land, a land above the surface of the water, is also called Ka. You see the 2 arms here. And then you also see the man standing with his 2 arms up, and it's in exaltation. It's talking about high, up, exalted, above. So the hands are going up, a high land. So you'll see it's spelled Kat, you see Ka, and Ka'et. Now, the reason why in this particular dictionary that was written over 100 years ago, that they use the Q for the Ka sound is because they decided that they had already used the K for the bowl with the lip on it for the Ka sound. So since there is more than one Ka sound in the language and culture and writing of ancient Kemet, how do you represent the Ka sound if you already represented the Ka sound? So for example, in English, you have the letter K, that's the Ka sound. You also have the letter C, which is round, that's another symbol. It's the Ka sound, as in cake. But C can also be the S sound, like in cellular phone. So the half circle or more than a half circle, that symbol is the K sound. But then you also have the, perpendicular line and the diagonals that make up the K, and that's also a K sound. So you have two symbols representing K. You also have the CH in English, that combination, that's K, like in Chrome or chronology. So you have two symbols separately, K and C, which is the K sound, two different K sounds, and then the CH combination is the third K sound. In ancient Kemet, the bowl with the lip is the K sound, that's the first K sound. So they transliterated that as the letter K. But then you also have this slope, a terraced slope or a smooth slope, and that is the K sound as well. And let's blow it up. This little slope right here next to the male, that is the K sound also. So since they already used the K, in this particular dictionary, they decided to use the Q, because the Q is also a K sound as well, to represent that sound. So you don't get thrown off by the fact that they're using a Q. That's not a qua. They ran out of K sounds because they already had the K. They knew the K sound was a K, but they knew that this slope, this little hill and so forth, also represented the K sound, so they used a Q for that. And the proof of that is when you look in the Coptic dialectical variant of the term. As you can see here where it says Coptic, kaye, the Coptic dialect is the dialect of the language of Kemet that came into use about 2,000 years ago at the end of the dynastic period. So when you see the Coptic kaye, hold on a second. You see it says Coptic kaye right here. In the Coptic dialect, which is still spoken in Kemet today, they're showing the vocalizations of the ancient language and how it was pronounced. So that's proof that the slope is the K sound. So that's kat as well as kayet. These are dialectical variants. Now, what does kat and kayet mean? Highland, Nile banks above the river. So it's a high land, kayet. Hold on a second. So what's important is the same two arms that represent the soul, the divine consciousness, are the same two arms of the man reaching up to the sky, showing this is a high or a raised or an exalted land. So we got the land, Ka, as well as Kayet, but it's something very specific about this particular landmass, very different from any other landmass. That's the etymology, but now we get into the cosmology. Now, Ka, the land above the banks of the river, the high ground upon which the deity of creation first stood. That's the cosmological part. So not only is it a high land, the land above the banks of the river, and you'll find that the word ta means a flat land, a flat plain. So a flat plain is ta, a high land like a mountain or a hill or raised land is a ka or kaet. Now, the high land upon which the God of creation first stood, let's blow this up a little bit. It's also redoubled, kaka, and that's a doubling principle in Afurakani, Afuraitkait languages. We double the sound to give it more emphasis. So a hill in Kemenu, a sacred region in Kemet, on which the heavens rested. So it's a sacred divine hill upon which the deities first descended at the creation of the world. It's Ka, Kaet. see the dialectical variants here, kai and koi and so forth. Feel, to be high, to be exalted. You also have ki and so forth. Now, to give it context, since we are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, we can look in other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit languages and find the same definitions. We should be able to do that if we say that our people migrated from ancient Khanid and Kemet, Nubian Egypt, into Western, Central, and South Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkait, Africa a couple of thousand years ago, continued the civilization, and then a few hundred years after that, some of them were taken from those regions and forced into the Western Hemisphere during enslavement, and this is how we ended up here. So, in the Hoodoo tradition, Voodoo tradition, and Juju tradition, and Wanga and Gengan in North America, we're still using these ancient terms and these traditions that you find in Western, Central, and South Afuraka, Afuraitkait, and you find all the way back in ancient Khanid and Kemet. So we can prove that. In the Tree language of the Akan people of Ghana and Ivory Coast, the term koko is defined as a hill or a mountain or a raised land. That is the kaka of ancient Kemet. There's a specific koko, koko Afu, koko Afu, as you can see right here. Koko Afu, and that is defined as the region where the great ancestress and her family settled after having descended from the sky on a golden chain at the beginning of the world. So in our Akan culture, we say there's a specific kaka. That's where the great ancestress, the spirits, came down at the beginning of the world to establish the world. So it's called kaka Afu, and that kaka Afu is Afu koko, Afu koko, Afuraka, Afuraka, and so forth. But we go further. In the Yoruba tradition, the Yoruba people of Southwest Nigeria, the term for raised land or mountain is ke or oke, as you can see here. There's a specific oke ara. There are 5 sacred hills in Yoruba cosmology, 5 sacred oke, and the oke ara is defined as the mountain or the hill, ke, that the Orisha first descended upon at the creation of the world. So in ancient Khanid and Kemet, there's a ka or kaka, a sacred hill or raised landmass that the deities first descended upon at the creation of the world. In our Akan culture, koko, Afu is a sacred kaka, a landmass, a raised land, upon which the great spirits descended at the beginning of creation. In Yoruba, the oke, Ara is the sacred mountain or hill upon which the Orisha, the deities, first descended at the creation of the world. Now we have the linguistics, etymology, but also the cosmology crossing cultures. Now, it's the high ground upon which the deity of creation first stood. That's one of the definitions of Ka in ancient Kemet. And in fact, let's go back up real quick. As you can see right here, Ka, masculine, Ka-et, feminine, and the T is a concretizing noun in the language of ancient Kemet. So the T or the et is a concretizing noun and it's a feminizing noun. So Ka is masculine, Ka-et is feminine. Ba is masculine, Ba-et is feminine. Same thing that you find in English that was preserved in the English language. You have Sean and Shawnette, or George or Georgette, or Jean and Jeanette, and so forth. The et makes something, it's diminutive, it's feminizing, it's a concretizing noun. That comes directly from ancient Khanid and Kemet. But so the Ka is the masculine aspect of the land, Ka-et is the feminine. So it's always a balance of masculine and feminine. The high place on which the God of creation stood. So that distinguishes this specific Ka as a sacred divine Ka within which the spirit of the creative power entered into that landmass, making it sacred. Hold on a sec. Take a minute to. All right. So who is the creative power that descended upon the landmass at the creation of the universe? And in this context, the world. Here we have images of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress. Now, there's one thing I want to pull up quickly, just so you can see. And it's important with regard to primary sources. So this is the reason I want to pull it up for you. Just so you can see where we get this information from. And this is actually an image of myself. Take this down for a second, just so you can see we're talking about primary sources and where we get the information from, and we're not just, making up anything. Hold on. Okay, so this is one of the times when I was in Kemet, and I was in the tomb of Seti. And you see Seti standing there next to Awusi Alsar. So the images we find in the book and throughout the book, we're talking about direct sources because I was actually in the space. We're talking about Ghana. I was in Ghana and so forth. We're talking about ancient Khanit, Nubia, or ancient Kemet. I'm actually there documenting this information, and then we're coming back to share this information now. So I just wanted to show that. And in addition to that, I'm going to show you another source, just so you can get a better understanding of the way that we're bringing this information out. When we talk about the Akan language, for example, and we compare, this is one of the articles I put forth, the Akan vocalizations of our ancestral language of Kemet, just so you can see what we're talking about. If the Akan people migrated from ancient Khanid and Kemet, which they did, of course, the human genome has proven that DNA-wise, but even if you look linguistically. This is the bowl with the lip, the K sound, and then the horizontal bolt is the S sound. So you see kes, kes, to chatter foolishly, to jest, kas, kes, as you find in the Coptic dialect. In Akan, kasa, kasa, to talk much, talk noisily, to chatter. Kes, kes in ancient Kemet, kasa, kasa in Akan, same word, same meaning. Him, him in ancient Kemet, a cry, war, bellow, a battle cry, and so forth. Hama, hama in Akan, boisterous, the sea rages, as agitated by a storm, raging. So a cry, a roar, a battle cry, a raging, to roar, to bellow. Hem, hem, hama, hama, same term, same meaning in Kemet and the Akan language. Here's that bowl with the lip, the ka sound, kai, as well as ka, as well as kai, two different variations of the spelling. To think, think out, to cry, call out, tell out, to repeat, to say. So that's ka, as well as kai. Ka with the nasal on the top, ka, to emit a sound, to utter, speak, say, or tell. So if in Akan we say ka, and this is nasal, so it's kan, to utter, speak, say, or tell. And in ancient Kemet, ka, as well as kai, but kai, to think, to speak, to say, cry out, utter, tell, speak, tell, same word. Then we get to something cosmological. Sha or shai, to fix, to a point, to decide, to determine, to destined to predestinate to ordain. So we're talking about predestination, what happens before incarnation. This is a spiritual concept. She. Then you have she, the HY combination in Akan is the sh sound. And you have she, to fix, to set up, to institute, to predestinate. As it says here, number 21, predestinate, appoint, or ordain beforehand, to be predestined. So to ordain, to appoint, to fix, to appoint, ordain, same term, same cosmology, and so forth. So as you can see, when we're talking about primary sources, we're talking about actual research. We're not just talking about listening to what somebody says. We're going to the actual sites. We're getting these medut and Toro, these glyphs from the tombs themselves, the temples themselves, the papyri themselves, bringing them back, comparing them to the actual language, learning the language, the tree language of the Akan people, comparing the language of ancient Kanini Kemet with the language of the Akan people, finding the same terms, comparing the deities from ancient Kemet and their names and functions, and the deities of the Akan people, and finding the same deities, the same names being worshipped today, still being possessed by these deities today. In Akan cultures, they're found in ancient Kemet, and it's the Akan people, those who were forced into North America during enslavement, who continued Akan religion under the Akan term Undu, which later came to be pronounced Hoodoo. So Hoodoo in North America is the Akan religion. We did a whole film about that. It's on our channel. You can look at the Hoodoo film on our channel. We released it a couple of years ago. It's a full documentary film proving that Hoodoo is the Akan tradition and so forth. So just so you can see, we're talking about actual real research. Now, let's get back to the text. Okay. So we're back. So who is the creator of the universe and the creatress of the universe who descended upon this primordial Ka at the beginning of creation? Who is that? Ra is the name of the creator of the universe. Ra'et is the name of the creatress of the universe. Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, are the divine living energy animating all of created entities. So they're the creator and creatress. By contrast, Amen, the great father, and Amenet, the great mother, are the great being. Ra and Ra'et are the divine living energies circulating within Amen and Amenet. So we'll get into that. But Ra and Ra'et are the creator and creatress. This is from one of the tombs in Kemet of Ramesu the Ninth. When I was in Kemet, I took that picture. This is from the temple of Khensu within the precinct of Mut, within Apet Asediu, which is so-called Karnak. So when you go into so-called Karnak, the great temple of Amen and so forth, in Apet Asediu, where you go in and you go to the right, a little bit further down, you will see this great precinct of the great mother divinity Mut. And within her precinct, there are a number of temples, and one of them is a temple of Khensu. There's a triad, Amen, Mut, and Khensu. Khensu, the divinity, when you go into that specific tomb, you will see this great relief, a large relief of Ra'et, the creatress. It's the most detailed, it's the largest and most detailed expression of Ra'et that you'll find anywhere in Kemet. So that's the creator and creatress. In Akan, that's Inyokumpon, and Inyokunton, Ra and Ra'et. In Yoruba, that's Odumare and Oshumare, Ra and Ra'et. In Vodun, that's Da and Aida Huedo, the creator and creatress. So that's who that is. And so you have Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress. Now, what's important is this title, Af, which means flesh, meat, joint, or member. Afu, plural. It says the carcass of the sun god of night, or the dead body of Ra. He has the form of a ram-headed god, and his shrine is encircled by the serpent Mehen. Afu means flesh, but it also means house or place of residence. One of the titles of Ra in ancient Kemet, when his spirit moves inside the underworld and goes into the 12 hours of the night, he goes from Ra sailing in the boat of the Aten, the boat of the sun, sailing across the sky. He has the Aten, the sun on his head. So Ra's not the sun god. Aten is the sun god. Atenit is the sun goddess. Ra and Ra'et, and you see they have the Aten and Atenit on their heads, the solar discs on their head. They possess the sun, just like a spirit possessing someone in a hoodoo ritual or a voodoo ritual and so forth. The spirit comes down and possesses and operates through the body of the person. Ra and Ra'et possess the sun. When their spirit animates the sun, they illuminate the sun and so forth. But what am I saying? Okay, so that's why Ra operates through the sun and uses the sun as a transmitter of his spiritual energy, the same with Ra'et. So when Ra is sitting in the boat of the Aten, the boat of the sun, and sailing from sunrise across the sky to sunset, you see the sun setting in the west. Then when the sun goes down into the quote unquote underworld for the 12 hours of the night and sails in the underworld for 12 hours before it gets back to the eastern horizon, Ra is no longer Ra. He's Afu Ra. Ra inside the Afu. Ra in matter, in the flesh. The earth itself becomes the flesh, Afu of Ra. Same thing with Ra'et, Afuraitkait. Now, so we show that. And we also show that the term Afu, Afi, in Akan means a house or a place of residence. Ofi, Ofie, Afin in Yoruba is the term for a palace. So Af in ancient Kemet, which is a house, place of residence, and also the flesh, which is the place of residence or house for your spirit. Meaning that in ancient Kemet, Ofi, Ofie in Akan, house, home, Afin in Yoruba, a palace, sanctuary for the sovereign, and so forth. All these things are related. And Afun in Akan also means carcass of an animal. Now, meaning the flesh. This is Ra sailing in his boat from sunrise to sunset. They'll say the boat, there's a boat, and the sun is in the boat and it's sailing across the blue sky, and the blue sky has moisture in it and so forth. So you have this solar disk, this fire. It doesn't want to get caught up in the moisture, so it's sitting in a boat, and Ra is sitting right next to the Aten, the sun, and he's sailing across the sky for 12 hours of the day, sunrise to sunset. But when that boat sets in the west and goes into the underworld, then things change. See, he has the head of a falcon here, a bird that flies through the sky. That's the kind of animal totem that he used. Sometimes he has the head of a male human being and so forth, male divinity. Sometimes the head of a falcon because he's flying through the sky. It's an avian animal. This is when he's in the underworld. So now he takes the form of a ram-headed, flat-horned, ram-headed divinity. Still has the solar disk in between his horns. This is in the tomb of Ra Nesu I, so-called Ramses I, but Ra Nesu I. Another version of that in the tomb of Seti. This is one of the images that I took myself when I was in the tomb of Seti. So he's the flat-horned ram. Why? Because he's in the earth now. It's a land animal. The flat-horned ram still has a solar disk and so forth. And he is called Afu Ra. He is inside, just like solar energy penetrating the earth, and the earth gets warmed up. There's fire energy within that soil. That fiery energy is now trapped in the soil, and it's inside the soil, it's inside the flesh, it's inside the matter, it's inside the Afu. So that's Afu solar energy. When Ra's spirit moves in the underworld, he's Afura. Same thing with Ra'et, she's Afuraitkait. This is a rendition of the solar disk going in the underworld and so forth, compared to the fertilization of an egg and so forth. You can see the similarities. And this is the image we use for the live stream itself. Here is Ra in his boat as Afu Ra. If you look at the spelling, the 3 pieces of flesh is Afu. If it was 1 piece of flesh, it's Af. 3, in the language of Kemet, when they do something 3 in a row, that means the plural. So the U is the plural. Sometimes they say a W, but Af is singular, flesh. Afu is plural, flesh. In English, flesh is singular, and the word flesh is also plural. They don't have fleshes. It's, flesh is singular and flesh is plural. In Kemet, Afu, Af means flesh, singular. Afu is flesh, plural. So this is Afu Ra. The solar disk, the circle with the dot in the middle, is Ra. And the 3 pieces of flesh, those are pieces of flesh, is Afu Ra. That's the way it's written in the dictionary, but this is the actual spelling. You see the 3 pieces of flesh right here and the solar disk. This is showing his name right next to him, Afu Ra. So that's one of the pictures I took when I was in the tomb of Seti. There's another picture I took in the same tomb, and this is the singular version right here. I'll put the circle around it. And that is the reed, which is Ah, the little horned viper, which is an F, and then the little red piece of flesh showing Af, spelled out AF, Af, and then the little piece of flesh is the determinative symbol showing it's talking about flesh. So that's Af, 1 piece of flesh, and then the red solar disk, Ra, so that's Afra, Afra. So in that representation right here is Afra. In this representation in the same tomb is Afura. The full name is Afura. Sometimes they'll spell it Afra, but the people who spoke the language knew what was going on. Now, just as a confirmation, in the Akan language, Fura means a native dress consisting of a large piece of cloth and so forth. That means putting something on. When Ra moves into the matter, matter becomes his flesh, he's putting on flesh, he becomes Afura. Fura and Akan right here, to put on a native dress consisting of a large piece of cloth and so forth. So when you see the Akan sovereigns, the Ohini, Ohima, put on this great colorful cloth and so forth, to put it on is Fura. When Ra puts on flesh, he's called Afura. Afu means a carcass or a carry-on, the dead body and so forth. Afu, that's talking about flesh. Afra in Akan means to become or be intermixed, commingled. So when you mix the flesh and the fire energy of Ra together, it becomes Afura. When you look here, it says Afra means to be mixed or mingled and so forth. And then Fram, to be on fire, to burn, to blaze. All of these are relating to the same concept. And then we also have Kaka, hill, as we saw before. Kwa, plantation, a farm, meaning of fertile land. Kwa, a fertile land. Afu, and also Afuo, plantation, cultivated ground or field. That's a fertile land. When the land is not fertile, and then all of a sudden it becomes fertile, it becomes Afuo, that's Afura, the fertile land. When the spirit of Ra moves through the land, it becomes vitalized, fired up, solar energy in the land, fertile. It can bring things forth and so forth. In Akan, that's Afuo, and Afur, that's Afura, Afura in ancient Kemet. So we show those various, connections. And we show the same thing here, Afu, Afu, flesh or house, Afuraitkait, Ka, then you have Ofi, house or home in Akan, Afu, animal carcass, Afuo, fertile land, Fura, to put on, all these different things. Now, we showed that Afura, so that's Ka, the Ka of Afura, the land of the Creator, the land of the Creatress. Now, there are false etymologies that were put forward for the origin of the term Africa, which is nonsense. They'll say the land was named after Scipio Africanus. Let's deal with that right now, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, Africa was named after a white man, and why are you using Africa, which is pure stupidity, but people just don't study. So they will repeat what other people have said without doing the actual research. And sometimes people are, well-known speakers or quote unquote scholars and so forth, but they're simply misinformed. And you don't listen to people just because, well, so-and-so is an elder, so we have to listen to what they say. Some of them are misinformed. And a wise elder would tell you to verify what they have to say. So let's get to it. And first I want to deal with this. Just give me a second. The Scipio Africanus piece. Oh, and this is part of showing you how to do some basic research, which people clearly have not done. So you hear somebody say, hey, well, Africa was named after Scipio Africanus. And you hear some well-known writer or speaker or scholar and so forth say that, and they call themselves Afrocentric and so forth. And it may seem plausible, which is a shame. A 7-year-old can Google this and find out that this is not true. Yet these people have been misinforming our people for decades. So, Scipio Africanus, his name was actually Publius Cornelius Scipio. And we just show the, lineage right quick. You see his brother. So his name was Publius Cornelius Scipio. His brother's name was Lucius Cornelius Scipio. What is his father's name? Publius Cornelius Scipio. What is his grandfather's name? Lucius Cornelius Scipio. And of course, his brother was named after the grandfather. What is the great-grandfather's name? Lucius Cornelius Scipio Barbatus. Do you see Africanus at the end of any of those names? No, you don't. So his name, his brother's name, his father's name, his grandfather's name, his great-grandfather's name was Scipio, and Scipio Barbatus. When Publius Cornelius Scipio invaded the northern part of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, and they defeated Hannibal, the great general, and so forth, he became known as Scipio, who invaded and conquered North Afuraka, Afuraitkait, or Africa, and became Scipio Africanus. He was named after the place that he conquered. His brother Lucius invaded Western Asia. When he won the battle in Western Asia, he became known as Scipio Asiaticus. So Scipio Africanus and Scipio Asiaticus. Nobody is stupid enough to say that Scipio Asiaticus named the continent of Asia, or that part of Eurasia, Asia. They know that because he invaded Asia, he was named after that. In ancient Khanate and Kemet, the term seat is the word which later became Sia and Asia in Asia. You'll see that in the Medut until the hieroglyphs. So the word Asia comes from that. So he didn't name the continent Asia, that's idiotic. And his brother didn't name the continent Africa, that's idiotic. So, and someone, a 7-year-old can Google that and find that out in a nanosecond. So imagine these people who are putting themselves in front of you as scholars and teachers and professors and elders and PhDs and so forth still repeating that false information. It shows that they haven't done any real research. And then you have to call into question everything they have ever said about any subject because you can't trust what they're saying. So anything that we put forward, we can show you how to go and do the research and find it yourself. And it also doesn't matter when someone says, don't believe me, do the research. They're betting that since they say that, you'll say, oh, they must be legitimate because they're telling us to do the research ourselves. And that emboldens you then to not do the research and trust them. And that's the little trick that they use to get you to not do research. So, and many people have done that. So let's go back up. I just wanted to point out a couple of those things that was important. And it's a very extensive book, so we're not going to go through the entire piece, but let me just point this out right quick. So when they talk about the Berber tribe called the Afre or Afarik people who occupied northern Afuraka, Afuraitkait over 10,000 years and so forth, yes, they're Afari or Afurika, the Afrika people. We show images of them. Those are the original people. They're named after Afura and Afurai and so forth. That's why they're called the Afarika, Afrika people. That's where Afri comes and so forth. When the Romans came in contact with them in the northern part of the continent, when they invaded North Afuraka, Afuraitkait, the first people they came in contact with was the people west of Kemet in so-called Libya, in North Afuraka, Afuraitkait. They came in contact with the Afrika people who have been there for tens of thousands of years, and they're still there right now. So the white invaders who later called themselves Berbers or Amazigh and so forth are invaders. So now, when they talk about the Greek term Afrik, meaning not cold, when you look in the ancient Kemet, the term afer means hot, to be hot, smoke, hot, vapor. And in fact, let me show you a quick. You also see that they talk about, in Latin, Apreka, the sunny land, Apreka, the land of Apre. That's para, apra, and pre in Coptic, Apreka. So this is where they got that from. The Phoenician term, farika, farik, meaning grain, corn, wheat, field, produce. The Phoenician word for corn is farik, the land of farik, or the land of corn, the land of the fruit and so forth, farika. Well, that comes from pari, which is grains of any substance in ancient Kemet, pari, ka, or the grain, the corn, the wheat, the field, produce, and so forth. That's where the Phoenician term farika, or farik, meaning substance, produce, and so forth, that comes from pari, which is corrupted into fari in ancient Kemet. The term farak, to divide, to separate, the Phoenician root farak, separation, to divide. And they'll say, well, Africa comes from farak, to separate, divide, and it's divided from, quote unquote, Kanani or Canaan or quote unquote Israel and so forth, or Phoenicia. Farak comes from per, a sign of subtraction, to go away, leave one's country. Perek, which became Ferek, to divide, to separate. So it doesn't have Phoenician origins either. Sanskrit and Hindi, the term apara, they'll say, oh, maybe it comes from the Sanskrit term apara, which means the land that comes after. When you look at para, to come after, that comes from para, in ancient Kemet, para or para, what comes forth, offspring, posterity. So when UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations, multi-volume set on the history of Africa, they published that, a number of years ago. And in the section about the etymology of the term Africa, they gave the Phoenician possibility, Greek, Latin, Arabic, Berber, and so forth. we just showed that each one of those are not the origin of the term. And also each one of those terms are para in Sanskrit, faraka, parak in Phoenician, frika in Greek, pareka in Latin. All of those terms literally come from ancient Khanid and Kemet and are found in the Meduta, the hieroglyphs, with the same meanings. And the Greeks and the Romans and the Phoenicians and Hindus and so forth learned those terms from our people. So they're not even Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, and Arabic terms and so forth. Now, so let's go a little bit further down. In the second part of the book, we talk about the cosmology of the Ba and the Ka, the spirit and the soul, and all of that. And there's an important piece. This is from one of the papyri, the Shat-n Duat, the book of the Duat, and so forth. And it's showing Ra as Afu Ra. You see him drawn here in the middle. So you see him in the middle. You see the three little pieces, the Afu, pieces of flesh. And you see him right here in the middle as Afu Ra. He's in his boat and he's sailing in the 12th hour of the night. And in the 12th hour of the night, right before sunrise, something happens. They say this, the text itself in the papyri says, this great God in this picture journeys, Afu Ra journeys along through this city by means of the faithful servants, the Amkyu of this Ka Im Onk Toru. His gods draw him along by a cord, and he enters into his tail, and comes forth from his mouth, and comes to the birth under the form of Kepra, and the gods who are in his boat do likewise. So what are they saying? This is the full piece. These are the Amkyu, the servants. These servants of Ra, they're pulling the boat along by a cord. The boat enters into the tail of this great serpent, and when it comes out of the mouth of the serpent, he's back up in the sky. This is right at the hour of dawn, when the sun is about to rise, when the solar energy is moving through the earth and so forth, and is getting towards the eastern horizon, and then it comes out of the land and goes up into the sky as it appears on earth and so forth. They say that there's a great serpent right there, and his mouth is right where the horizon is, and then the solar disk comes up out of his mouth and into the horizon. So Afu Ra moves through the tail of this great serpent, moves through his body, and then when he's born at the day, he goes from being Afu Ra, and he goes up into the sky, he leaves the earth again, and he goes from Afu Ra, the land animal, flat-horned ram, into Ra, the head of the falcon, solar disk on his head, up in the sky. But as long as he's connected to earth, he's Afu Ra, and he's moving inside this great serpent, and this great serpent's name is Ka M'Onk Ntoru, the Ka of the living deities. Afu Ra is moving inside the great Ka. That is Afu Ra Ka. This great Ka, this serpent, is representative of the landmass right at the beginning, the opening of the land from which the solar energy will come out of. And that's that primordial hill that serpent is dealing with. So Afu Ra is moving through the Ka. That is Afu Ra Ka cosmologically. When you go to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, this is where this papyrus is, and that's a picture that I took myself when I was there. This is another representation of the same thing. Instead of showing a great serpent, they show Asar and his body bent over in a circle at the 12th hour of the night. And his body is the body of the Duat and so forth, the black soil of the Duat and so forth, and then Ra is born from that. But we show early in the text that in that capacity, when Ra is moving through the underworld and he connects with Asar. There's a text talking about Ra and Asar coming together to work together and so forth, that particular text, but just to show you the image right quick. This is Asar, this is Afu Ra, and then they fuse together in the same body. So just like if you get in a vehicle with somebody, and now there are two people in the same vessel, and one of them is directing you on where to go and so forth. So Ra gets inside the vessel, Asar gets inside the vessel, they're in the same body. It's like spirit possession. The lower half is the mummified body of Asar, the upper half is Afu Ra. But in this context, Asar has the name Ka Hetep. So Afu Ra has fused with the deity Ka, that is Afu Ra Ka cosmologically. We go through that whole piece, and this is the term Ka Hetep, which is a title of Asar at that point. So once again, you have Afu Ra fusing through and into the Ka. We have more information talking about Ptah and so forth. We also go into the details about the term Al-Kabalan is actually an Arabic term. So that's not an ancient indigenous term for the continent. That's misinformation. Most people got that information from Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, but he did not make that up. He got that from Leo Africanus, who was writing a history of Africa in 1526. And he's the one who said that the Sabaeans and the Numidians and others call the land Al-Kabalan. And we show the etymological origin of the term Al-Kabalan, and it's an Arabic term. El-Gebelain, and so forth, that's where it comes from. And by the way, this is not Asar, it's not Atem. This is the Canaanite god El. So when they talk about El, and in our book, Kukutuntum, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, we show that Yahweh is a fictional character. Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Allah, Buddha, Brahman are all fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any form or of any race. This is the deity El, who's different from the deity Yao and so forth. So we just showed that, but we go into some detail about that. But we show that El Gebelain, the Arabic term is where they get El Kabaline from. And we show the entire cosmology to show you where El Gebelain comes from, the land between the two mountains, from the deity El Gabal, and so forth. So we go into detail about that. We mentioned Amen and Amenet previously. Well, the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being. Ra and Ra'et are the Creator and Creatress, who are servants of Amen and Amenet. So if you look at your body as an Afurakani man, like Amen, an emanation of Amen, and your body as an Afuraitkaitnit woman, as an emanation of Amenet, then you're the great being, and the solar energy, divine living energy, life force energy surging through you is your Ra force as a male and Ra'et force as a female, and you direct that energy to different parts of your body and so forth. Amen and Amenet are the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being, and the life force energy circulating through them. Through our creation is Ra and Ra'et, their Ra, Ra'et force, and they direct Ra and Ra'et to go out and create. When you go into the temple of Apet Asetu, so-called Karnak, once you get to where all the pillars are, if you go to the left, you'll see this image right here. It's one of the images I took. That's Amen and Amenet standing together. If you go all the way to the back and then you make a left, you will see these two great colossal statues, like 15 feet tall, of Amen on the left and Amenet on the right. This is the temple of Paraka, so-called Philae, in southern Kemet, on the border of Kemet and Kanit, Egypt and Nubia and so forth. This is Ra'et from the temple of Khonsu. I just want to finish this portion off. We show in the papyrus of Ani, When Ra is talking about the creation of the world, he says, Anuk Ra Mkai F Sha Hek Punef Punef Pu Tra Aref Su. Ra Pu Shai Kaif Nsut Hinin Nsut. And it goes on to say, Afuraka. It's talking about the creation of the world, the foundation of the world. I am Ra and his rising. In the beginning, ruled this he. Who then is he? Ra, it is in the beginning. He rose within Hinin Su as a king, or within sovereignty, within existence, not come into being, or not yet had come into being, the pillars of Shu. That means before the pillars of Shu came into being, he existed upon the highland. Afuraka. That's talking about Ra, the sovereign who is upon the Kaka. That identifies him at the beginning of creation when he has first established the land. Afurakaka is he existed upon the highland. That's describing Ra as the one who established the first Kaka highland at the beginning of creation, before the pillars of Shu came into existence. They're talking about the creation of the world. And we show the Medutu, the hieroglyphs that lay that out. That's found in the papyrus of Ani, as well as the papyrus of Hunnefer and other papyri as well. So that's a textual reference of Ra establishing the world on a highland at the beginning of creation. So we go through that in that section. We just mentioned the Afrika people, Afuraka, Afrika people, the Berbers, the Tuareg people, and so forth, who live in North Afuraka, Afuraitkait today, right now. They're still called Afrika and so forth. We show that same term exists in the Akan language. So I'm just running through some of these. I don't want to keep you much longer. And then we show some detail about Afu, this is ancient Paraka, Filai, and so forth. Terms Afu, flesh, meat, body, limbs. Also tent, camp, chamber, house, Af. And then the term for island is also and Af. And the reason why that's important, because the same word which means island, this little oval meaning island, means a nest or a home. Means a house, temple, or shrine. Means flesh. And it also means island. But Af also means flesh. Af also means house or place of residence. So we're showing that the word Af, meaning flesh, but also house or place of residence, the variation of that is which also means flesh, but it also means house or place of residence. It also means an island. And the reason why that's important is because the region of Paraka, so-called Fila, is called Ra Ka, and also Ra-Kat. Ra Ka and Ra-Kat is a variation of Afuraka and Afurakat, the land of the creator, land of the creatress. And the reason why they say that is because in Paraka, so-called Fila, this is the temple of Paraka. It is an island in between Kemet and Kani. The priests and priestesses of Paraka Fila will say, this is the landmass itself that rose up from under the surface of the water, become the first peak or point of land that Ra and Ra took up residence in, and enlivened that energy, made that land fertile and so forth. And they call it Afuraka and Afurakat and so forth. Other variations is Afuraka and Afurakat. That's why we show island, flesh, land, house, chamber, flesh, chamber, temple, and so forth. All of that. Same definition. And we prove the etymology. So we're talking about a land raised up, and you see the symbol of the man with the two arms. That land that rose up at the beginning of creation, Ra Ka, Rakat. That's a variation of Afuraka and Afurakat, same thing. And so when you see these, and this one on the right is the one I took when I was there, the last time I was there, this little landmass right here is the ah symbol. The little open mouth here is the ra symbol. And this sloped, hill and so forth is the ka. So that's Ra Ka, Ra Ka. That's what it is. And then we get into Afri, the goddess Afrika, Dea Afrika. You see her on a coin, a couple of coins right here. The goddess Africa, Dea Afrika. She's called Afri or Ifri by the Berbers. The Romans called her Ifrika, Afrika, because she was known as that by the Berbers before the Romans got there. She was preserved on these coins. This is Afu Ra, and this is Ra'et, as the mistress of the boat. That is Ra'et is Afuraitkait, which became Afrait and Afri and Ifri by the Berbers and so forth. This is Ra and Ra'et as Afu Ra and Afuraitkait. In the late period, you see different versions of Afrait or Afri, one from Tunisia and so forth, even in the form of Cleopatra when she was wearing the headdress of the elephant, the sacred headdress of Afrait and so forth. So late period versions of her expression. So going from the earliest times all the way by the time the Romans invaded and so forth, even in the 2nd century, they corrupted the imagery and so forth, but they were still talking about the same goddess. This riot, when you go in the temple of Apera Setu, and the very first set of pillars, columns, if you go to the left, you go towards the back, you will find her right there on the pillar. This is the late period version of her. You see the Tuareg people, the people of the blue veil. They still use henna and dye their arms and so forth blue. This is one of the Pera, so-called pharaohs, Osorkon, the second of Libya, right west of Kemet. Have always been using the blue tint, the blue henna and so forth. Never stopped. The Fula people, Fulani Berbers, Fula is Fura. The Tuareg is the T, Areka, T, Arek. So we show the etymology of that. And then when you go to quote unquote Darfur, so you have Sudan, which is ancient Nubia, and you go west where the Fur are, where they call them Fur. They're called Fur, also Fura and Furak. The ancient Khanate or Nubia. Southwest Nubia, where Sudan is connected to the Central African Republic, near the center of the continent. That's these people, the Furak, the Afurak people. They still call themselves that. They still have the language. Their language is called Furakang, the G Furakang, and they're the Furak or the Afurak people. They never stopped calling themselves that. So any fool talking about the white man didn't name these people the Furak people. They didn't come up with Afu Ra and Afuraitkait in the land, Ka and Kaida, the Creator and Creatress, and Afu Ra moving through the Ka at the beginning of the world and so forth, and Afuraitkait moving through the Ka. The whites and their offspring didn't create any of that. So the idiocy of people saying that we didn't come up with the term, it was named after a Roman general who lived just 2,200 years ago, and we've been using these terms for thousands of years, is idiotic. And it proves they're not doing any research. So, and in the appendix, we show the various spellings with the smooth slope and terrace slope of Ka and Kayat and so forth. Detailed information. The actual papyrus of Ani as well as Hunefer, showing Afuraitkait spelled in the text itself. So that's what I wanted to share today. That's just a very brief summary. There's a great deal of information. We've done courses on this. We actually have 42 online courses. They're all archived. You can access them. Once again, for those who came in a little bit later, let me show you this. The book Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkait is the first book in our anthology, ODWIRASEM, Trustorical Anthology. It's a 600-page book, 8.5 by 11 full color. So it's an encyclopedia-sized book. I took 12, as you can see here, 12 of the 31 books that I have published. I put them all together in one great anthology, an encyclopedia-sized book. The first one is Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkai, the origin of the term Africa, which we were just checking out. The second one is Kuku Tuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction. In this book, we show the cosmology of creation and so forth, but we also get into how the various fictional characters of the Bible, Quran, and Talmud never existed. So Jesus never existed, Muhammad never existed, Buddha never existed, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Aaron, all of that, none of them existed. So we go into detail about that, how they were manufactured. They weren't black, they weren't white, they didn't exist at all. They took names and functions of specific deities from ancient Kemet, corrupted those names and functions, and added them on to fictional white characters who never existed. So to try to blacken up Jesus, Yeshua, Yahweh Shah is like trying to blacken up Santa Claus. Jesus never existed. Yeshua, Isa, no matter what term you want to use, never existed at all. The same with Muhammad, the same with Allah, the same with Yahweh, the same with Buddha, Brahman, and the various characters of the Bible and Quran. Now, so we have a number of different books. We have let me show this real quick. Well, first, if there are any questions in the chat room, let me know. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull up. Okay. All right, so I want just to show you the back cover of the text. Just so you can see the different texts that we have. All right. So you'll see 12 of the books. Afu Ra Ka, Afuraitkait, the origin of the term Africa is the first one. We also have Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, the origin and nature of the chakra. So the terms yoga and chakra or kakra come from Yonk, Yonka, which is one of the variations of the term Ankh and so forth, and Karakara in ancient Kemet. The book Kokobo, Dissexuality, Homosexuality, Divine Prohibition Against Dissexuality, Homosexuality in ancient Kemet. And we show the text showing that there's a divine prohibition against that. So when individuals try to pretend like there was quote unquote gender fluidity in ancient Kemet and there was no, prohibition against that, and that only came with the Christians and Muslims, total fraud. We have texts talking about how that's against divine order and you can't go to the ancestral realm if you participated in that perversity, as well as other perversities. So we show the actual text and we go through those texts point by point to prove that. Anidaho, we talk about the origin of the term God, Ga, which is a title of the ancient divinity Amen and Amenet, Ga, Ur, and so forth. So God is not a German term. That German Proto-Germanic term comes directly from a title of Amen as well as Amenet in ancient Kemet. the origin of the term nigger. When they try to say nigger means God, pure stupidity. We go into detail about that. Ritual practices, libation, shrines, ritual song, ritual dance, ritual chant, ritual meditation, shrines, all these different things we talk about in the Uben Shang. We have the book More Means Dead, showing that the term more literally means dead. So there's no such thing as us having a Moorish identity. That's pure idiocy, pure stupidity. The term more literally means dead. It means cosmologically, spiritually dead, physically dead, socially dead. So to call yourself a Moor is idiotic. You're calling yourself spiritually dead, physically dead, and socially dead, literally. We have Kemet, Hinat, and Toro, the Black nation and divinity, showing that the terms Kemet, with the etymology of the term Kemet, meaning black, the Black nation and Black people, as well as Ntoro. We also show the etymology of the term Black, Biri, which is a sacred term, Biri, which became Birik and Bilik and Black. Biri comes from ancient Khanid and Kemet, and is found in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit languages like the Akan language. That's a sacred term. So this notion that Black means death and all that, pure stupidity once again. So we show that in the book More Means Dead as well. Rakit Hina Speret, the etymology of the words religion and spirit, Rekit and Seperet. These terms originate in ancient Khanid and Kemet. We show the etymology and the cosmology. The nature of the soul, the divine consciousness, the divinity that governs the head for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African Black people. We go into detail about that in that book. This book about Tahuti, he shows up as Tahuti in Kemet, Fa in Vodun, Ifa in Yoruba, Afa in Igbo, Sankofa in Akan, and so forth. So we show the same divinity Tahuti across these various cultures, and his title Fa. So all of these books we have within our text. Let me show this. This is the I'll just show you the front cover from on the image side. So that's the front cover of the book. You see, we'll see that's from the Temple of Ramesu the Ninth when I was in Kemet and took that image here, the Black divinity Awusi. So Black is sacred, of course. We've always referred to ourselves, even in the Akan language. Hold on one second. So this is the Black divinity as we were showing. Awusi, Alsar, and so forth. We've always called ourselves Black. Even the term for Black people is Obibri-Fo, which is Black people. Ibibri-Mine, the Black nation. Obibri-Ni, a Black individual in Akan. The root is Bri, which means black or dark. But black or dark also means sacred, powerful, and so forth. So that's the front cover of the book, and I'll put this in the chat room. So you can order our book, all the information we went over today, plus all those 12 books. You can order our book now from our website. We have a 30% discount automatic for those people who are our followers. The book is on Amazon, but it's more on Amazon because Amazon takes 60% from all booksellers. So they take 60% off the price. And that's just, what distributors do. So that's why you have people, they have their book on Amazon, but they also sell it on their website as well because they can sell it at a cheaper price. So let me show you on the link itself so you can see it. And we have two separate links for that. Let me cut this out. All right. So when you go to our website, the Nhoma page on our website, you will see the book and you can order it now. Hold on a second. Let's see. All right. Okay, so this is the Nhoma page on our website. Nhoma is the word for book or publication. But that's the first thing you will see. You'll see a video where we're talking about the book, but that's it. So on the Square platform, when you click here, the brown button, you'll see that on the Square platform, you have a couple of options. Let me make sure that comes up for you. Okay, I got to switch screens for it. Square, you can just purchase the book outright, or if you qualify for the, 4 payments, 4 interest-free payments, you can do that as well. So when you click on it, you'll see it's $44 plus shipping. It's $52, but if you do the payment plan option through Square, if you qualify for that, when you go through, you can pay $13 up front, and then you pay them over time. But as you can see right here, it says 4 interest-free payments of $13. So you can do it that way if you qualify for that, and you can get the book initially for $13, but over time you'll pay like every once a month, once every 2 weeks, or once a month, $13, 3 more payments, and you'll be done. But please support our effort. We are working on our second documentary film in the Hoodoo film series. That is on the website. When you purchase the book, you're assisting us to get that film done. We're trying to complete the film this month. We're working, trying to get it done. We missed our previous deadline. Some of you know about that. We're trying to get the film done this month. So if you can order this book, not only, of course, you'll get this information that's very important for our people and yourself, but you'll also be helping us to, complete our documentary film. And if you look at, hold on a second. You'll see right here. You'll see on our page right here, the Hoodoo Akan Ancestral Religion in North America film, free film on our page. That's the first in a Hoodoo trilogy. Our very first documentary film, we won an award for this. It's a Mado Kafu Ade Bisa, African American Ancestral Divination. So we talk about the forms of divination that were preserved in the Hoodoo tradition in North America, which is Akan, the Voodoo tradition, which is Ewe, the Wanga tradition, which is Ovambo, the Ngangan tradition, which is Fang, and the Juju tradition, which is Yoruba. So when we were forced over here, we continued our ancestral religious practices, and we preserved forms of divination. So we have different individuals talking about that, including myself, in that documentary. And then the Hoodoo film is dealing specifically with the Hoodoo tradition, which is Akan ancestral religion in North America. And of course, the Akan people come from ancient Kanat, Nubia, and Kemet, migrated west a couple of thousand years ago, continued the civilization. And then some of us were taken from there and forced into North America. So the Hoodoo tradition is a preservation of not only Akan ancestral religion, that's what it is, but it's preservation of ancient Kanat tradition, which is ancient Nubian tradition as well. So we're working on part 2 of the Hoodoo film trilogy. We're trying to finish that this month by the name, the so-called winter solstice and so forth. We're trying to get it done by that. But even beyond that, just the book itself, everybody who's gotten the book have praised the book. It's the go-to book now for if you want to be introduced and get detailed information about our culture, cosmology, language, ritual practices, holistic health, a number of different things, but true history and cosmology in detail. This is the book to get. Okay, so any questions in the chat room? We're going to go ahead and end it here if we don't have any questions left in the chat room. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think I missed anything. Okay. Okay, so Yedase, we thank everybody for tuning in to this live. Please share the information. Please check out our book. We also have our classes. I should have mentioned our Susu course. Let me pull that up right quick. The live version of the course, our next 4-week online certification course actually begins tonight, but then we have the archive version of the course as well. So let me just show you that before we get out of here. All right. So we have so far, we have certified 57 individuals so far over the past year. As Susu means meditation, it's the ancient term for meditation. Of course, that originated in our ancestral culture and so forth. You can even see here, Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, seated in the traditional meditation pose, the Susu pose. Meditation predates India. It didn't originate in India and so forth. So we have our Susu meditation instructor certification. So it's a 4-week course. You can be certified to conduct introductory meditation sessions, schools, places of business. They'll bring someone in, they're having a breakout session, they're having a seminar, productivity enhancement, at work and so forth. They have someone come in and do a 10-minute, 15-minute meditation session for mindfulness and so forth. They pay people typically $100, $200 for that. Schools will have their children do a meditation before the beginning of the day and right after recess to keep them more focused and disciplined and regulate behavior, but also enhance learning outcomes. Going to human services organizations like women's shelters, family shelters, people dealing with workforce development, overcoming addictions and things like that. People bring someone in if they have a therapy group, group therapy every week. They'll say, okay, well, Friday, we're going to bring you in, do a 15-minute meditation. When you're certified and you have a certification, you can go to these places, they see your credential, and then you can generate $100, $200, $300 for these small sessions. And so you can generate income while empowering our community at the same time. So we certify people. We've been teaching Susu meditation for over 20 years, been practicing for over 30. We're talking about the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African origins and perspective and root of Susu, quote unquote, meditation and so forth. So when we show people how to conduct these sessions, utilize your credential to generate income and so forth. It's a 4-week course. I meant to say this earlier, but it starts tonight, the 4-week course, tonight at 8 p.m. If you want to sign up for the 4-week course. We also have the archived version. If you can't attend live and you want to do the archived version, you can register for the archived version. We send you the archives of the 4, sessions, video sessions, plus the books are free downloads. You go through all of the information. Then we have a Zoom session where we go into detail about that, make sure you understand everything, and then we will submit your certificate to you. So if you want to do the archive version, if you don't want to do the live session or you can't do the live session, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for the next 4 weeks, the archived version is available now. And in fact, we just sent this out this week. We have a payment plan option for that. And when you click on it, we have the square site. The brown button is the square site, and the green button is the PayHip site. We found we're using Square as a payment platform, and it turns out that Square, which is used all throughout the United States, people overseas, Square doesn't accept overseas payments. So in addition to that, we added the green button, the PayHip site, but it's the same thing. And PayHip accepts payments from here, United States, as well as overseas. But whichever one you choose, you go on the site, you make sure you can see it. Okay. you'll see that we have, for subscribers and people like you who have subscribed to our channel and so forth, the course itself is $399, but for subscribers it's $299. But we have a payment plan option where you can put a down payment of $39, and then you can do the monthly $39 payment. And what's good about that is typically, people go through a 4-week session, they book their first session, and they may get $150 for, I'm doing a half-hour session with a group, with a place of business, some employees or a school. So that $150 paid for half of their class. And the next time they go back to that school and teach again, that $150 just covered their entire course. So within a couple of weeks, they covered their entire course. Even before they finished, would have been paying the $39 per month. So you can start with $39, whether it's the live class tonight or the archive course. And with the archive course, it's self-paced study. You can study on your own time. You can go through the videos. You can go through the books and so forth. And when you're ready, we set up a Zoom session and we go through everything so you can gain clarity and you get your credential. So let me put that link in the chat room. The Susu page. Okay, so question, will you be offering the chakra balance certification live again this year? We may not do that one live, but we do have the archive version for that. And with the archive version, we still have, the Zoom session. And what she's referring to, let me go back. So this is the regular Susu piece, and that's your certification. So you can go anywhere across the country, and people in other countries have gotten the certification there in their respective countries, like the Netherlands and England and other places. They're certified and they're teaching and they're generating income by having that credential. So that one, that's all you need to have that credential. But for people who've taken that and they want to go further in depth in the cosmology, because when you're teaching, conducting meditation sessions, and you go to someone's place of business or you go to a school, you're not trying to force ancestral religion on them. You're not trying to convert them into practicing ancestral religion. You'll show them that meditation is Susu and it came from our people, but then you take them through a process and they can experience the benefits of that, physiological as well as hormonal balance, and assisting in weight loss, reducing stress, reducing anxiety, enhancing learning outcomes, enhancing work productivity. Those basic things that those people want. That's why they brought you out to conduct those sessions, because they know it will benefit their employees, their students, and so forth. But if you want to go more in depth with regard to cosmology, because maybe you want to set up do a presentation yourself outside of a work thing or a school thing, you want to do something with people who are really interested in cosmology, then we have a level 2. And that's what the person was referring to as the question. And that level 2 is the Karakasa. When we talk about the Chasu 7, the 7 Chasu, that's these 7 deities right here who govern the 7 Karakara, the 7 so-called chakras, with these 7 deities, who are the divinities that govern the 7 energy centers and so forth. We're talking about the actual deities that govern these centers in ancient Khmer. So we go through the cosmology, the 7 Kunimu, the 7 Kunum, or so-called Kunimu divinities, as well as the 7 Chasu. So there's a great deal of cosmology with regard to that. That course also exists on the same page. It's an archived course. So if you want to, okay, so you said you already have the Susu meditation certification. Okay, so you said I already have my Susu meditation certification. My clients have given me very positive feedback from the sessions. Awesome addition to my studies. Okay, Medase, we appreciate that and for you sharing that. But yeah, so part 2 is archived right now, but even with the archive session, when you take the Karakasa course, we're still going to do a Zoom session. It would just be, a personal Zoom session with me and yourself. Anybody who takes that course, it's still going to be a Zoom session, just won't be a live with a number of people. So that one is an archive. You can access it via archive self-paced study. That's level 2. But the level 1, the live one starts tonight at 8 p.m. But the archive version, self-paced study, you can do it at any time. So you can, send the deposit, $39 deposit. We send you all 4 weeks of the videos and the book downloads and so forth, and you start studying on your own pace. Okay. Okay, so yeah, and you can go, that's on both pages, the square page as well as the pay it page. And we didn't, when you took your course, we didn't have the $39 option. I think we had the $99 down payment option at that point, but we just recently added the $39 down payment and monthly installment option. We just added that like within the past couple of weeks. So that's new for, since you took yours. Okay. Okay, so once again, I'll say we thank you all for joining in with us. Once again, check out, you can get the book, you can do the down payment of $13 to get the book shipped. And we may be doing some more lives to further go into the other 11 books as part of this anthology, just so we can go into some detail about this cosmology. But again, I'll say we thank you for tuning in, and Yebe Shabio, we will meet again.